The Great North Road, 3 words that conjure up waves of romance, of travelling north, embraced by the cosy familiarity of England and Scotland. I was born in Newcastle, and I've charged up and down it all my life, always with the zinging, exciting feeling. It starts at the post office of St Martin le Grand in London, and it ends at the post office in Waterloo Place in Edinburgh. But, despite this, there is not going to be a single mention of coaching days and coaching ways of the stagecoach, the highwayman or the hostelry. We want instead to show the hidden glories, the secret and unexpected delights that can be found. Today, the Great North Road, roughly speaking, is the A1. And one of the first places that it passes is the bleak Barbican, which embodies most horribly the terrifying post-war dream of life. But over the years, the road north has followed many routes out of London, including the Hornsey Road, where there nestles one of the delightful secrets which is about to vanish forever. Number 63 is the home of Mrs. Daisy Rogers. Her second husband, Roger, has died, so the house is being dismantled and she is about to move into a spanking modern home. Hello, Daisy.
Why, hello, Lucy. How nice to see you. Come in.
Thank you.
When we came here, the bottom was brown and the top was a paler brown. It was awful. It had to be covered over. All the staircase walls, it was shocking. It's just utilitarian.
You told me that you wanted to cover up, make it look respectable.
Make it look pretty, not respectable. It's never been respectable. As for the eyes, well, they're just eyes. I suppose that is why I put them there. I mean, they're more important than noses, aren't they, really? Or ears?
And what about the octopi?
Ah, that one there is Roger.
Your husband?
He looked like that, yes. My second husband. My first husband, as you know, lives under the kitchen table in the grotto there. He lost his sense of humour when he came out with a RAF, and I sort of came to the end of my patience and went. Anyway, here, after some years, he married a doctor, and after another 6 years, he died of heart, and she was a heart doctor, which was rather a pity.
And you and Roger?
Oh, well, it was love at first sight.
Oh, wonderful.
When I first knew him, he was 6 foot, but they always shrink a bit, don't they? And he had a lovely apple-red face, but his hair had gone white when he was about 19. And when he grew a beard, first of all, I thought that I'd diet ginger. And unfortunately, he got an awful allergy, and his skin went like a crocodile's skin, and he was like that for weeks. Dreadful it was.
With your ginger dye, you mean?
Yes. It was terrible. I mean, it irritated, and finally I remember we were camping in the van, which we always did in those days, and suddenly he woke up with a yell and he said, "It's coming off!" And it skinned. And after that he was all right.
Daisy, I admire the kitchen more than any other room in the home.
You would not if you had to cook in it.
Tell me, I want to know how you did it.
Isn't it dreadful?
This is
Oh. Ah, yes, well, look. That's a saint's head. It was a whole saint.
Yes.
They were off a kind of teddy bear, or it might have been a monkey. The linen faces were the kind you could buy for about twopence to make a rag doll with.
I remember, yes. And then what about this little clenched fist here?
I don't know, do you know? I've never seen that before.
I think you might have.
It looks as if it might have been off one of the... We used to have we have a Breton man over there.
Yes, I know.
Yes.
What about the naked lady lying beneath him?
Ah, she was Roger's before I ever knew him. It's all made of calico, if you know what that is, steeped in plaster of Paris. Anything to make it look like a grotto.
Why did you want to have a grotto?
I think it was just devilment, you know, to make something different.
What do you think of it all? Oh, please, do you love it?
No, I don't now. How can I be anything but glad to get to a house with central heating? I'm going to have a fridge and a proper gas stove. Fitted carpets and a stainless steel sink. You know, nice things.
What a glorious relief it is to feel the weight of London off your shoulders. My heart thunders with excitement when the words "to the north" appear on all the signposts. It is a very curious thing to think that Byron's funeral procession passed along this very route, past Brocket Hall in Hertfordshire, the home of his deranged and former mistress, Lady Caroline Lamb. Life was violently miserable at Brocket Hall, with Lady Caroline Lamb plunging daily into singular and fresh excesses. In the winter of 1812, she performed an alarming symbolic ceremony, plunged as she was in the midst of her grief of having been rejected by Byron. She put his wax effigy on an enormous pyre in front of the house, and having got the children from the village of Welwyn, dressed all in white, to dance round the flames, she flung in all the trinkets that he'd given her, copies of his letters rather than the real ones, of course, because they were far too precious, whilst all the time at the head of the flames stood a page boy, reading in sonorous tones, "Burn, fire, burn, these glittering toys destroy," while thus we hail the flames with throats of joy. This little lost and leafy lane is in fact the old Great North Road, which is a thrillingly romantic discovery that makes one so particularly aware of the passing of time. And it was here that Caroline Lamb saw Byron's hearse being hauled north by its black-plumed horses. She was on her first day out after she had fallen into a steep decline on hearing of his death. When she found out whose cortege it was, it made her very ill again. In fact, it is said that she never recovered from his death, and this chance encounter must have fueled the flames of her grief most horribly. In this unexpected spot in North Mimms in Hertfordshire, there's a stone marking a very singular event, and what in its day must have been a terrifying and extraordinary event of an enormous balloon descending from out of the sky. It was on September the 15th in 1784, and this great unexpected and strange thing came from above. It was the first flight in the air of a balloon ever to have taken place over England. Down it came. In its basket was Vincenzo Lunardi, an Italian, roaring through a trumpet. He descended, he handed out his cat, and was up again in a trice, whizzing away up into the clouds. And by 3:30, they were flying over the hills of Hertfordshire, which entranced Lunardi. He described it as having mild and permanent verdure, and all the people coming out of the houses and the villages to hail his appearance. So it's an excellent thing that his adventurous exploits have been recorded on this stone, although strange to say, it is not in fact the exact spot where Lunardi landed, and that is 3 miles from here. And it was, in fact, here, in this field, that Lunardi landed, which is just by the old Great North Road. Anyway, after 30 seconds, he was up and off again, flinging out, apparently, his knives and forks, plates and spoons to make the journey a little easier, and also an empty bottle. Across the fields in the churchyard of St John the Baptist at Cockayne-Hatley, there is a bronze memorial plaque to a little girl who died when she was 5 years old of meningitis, called Margaret Henley. And she is Wendy, Peter Pan's Wendy, Barry's Wendy. Barry was a friend of her father's, and loving the company of little children as he did, he and the little girl became great friends. And she, wanting to call him my friendy, couldn't quite manage it, but would call him my friendy Wendy. And so finally the name Wendy was born. From her lips, she invented it. And Barry afterwards, when he was writing Peter Pan, remembered his little golden chum. And here she is, a golden girl, according to her father. He's his only child, too, age 5, who died. And he is buried round the corner where there's another gripping surprise. Here, if you can believe it, is Long John Silver, who was Margaret's father, William Ernest Henley, the very distinguished poet, art critic, and playwright. Robert Louis Stevenson met him first when he was in hospital, having his second leg saved by Lister. His first leg had been amputated when he was only 16 years old. He was a wonderful man, distinguished figure, huge great beard and hair sticking up a foot all over his head and strangely penetrating eyes. And Stevenson wrote to him later, "It was the sight of your maimed strength and masterfulness that begot John Silver in Treasure Island. And it is so extraordinary to think that these two great characters, Long John Silver and Wendy, are lying side by side in a churchyard in Bedfordshire." The road used to run through the middle of Stilton in Cambridgeshire, which is not where the famous cheese was ever made. It was first produced by Mrs. Paulette of Wyndham near Melton Mowbray, who supplied it to Mr. Cooper Thornhill at the Bell. And as the village was on the Great North Road, the fame of this rather violent delicacy soon spread far and wide. My mother has vivid and colourful memories of going through here as a child. She describes it as looking like Montélimar with Stilton cheeses piled high all down the pavements instead of nougat. Daniel Defoe recorded a less appealing aspect in the 1720s in his tour through the whole island of Great Britain. "It is called our English parmesan," he wrote, "and they bring it to the table with the mites and the maggots all around it, so thick that they bring with them a spoon for you to eat the mites with as you do the cheese." In this rural spot of Thistleton Gap, a most colourful event took place in the early 1800s. An illegal prize fight between Tom Cribb, the champion of all England, and Tom Molyneux, the sable contender from Baltimore, two great champions of the fistic art. All this is still very much alive in the minds of the people of Thistleton, like Mrs. Osborne.
This was where the great fight was. The fight went on and on until poor Molyneux was nearly killed, I think.
How dreadful.
There
A
was,
vicious spectacle.
I think it was, yes, I think it was horrible, really. I should have thought so.
I wouldn't have fancied it, would you?
I wouldn't have fancied it at all. No, I wouldn't.
Cribb beat Molyneux, who'd had a far slacker training in that he bolted down 2 chickens and a tankard of beer and a whole apple pie for breakfast, whereas Cribb had been more abstemious with 2 lightly boiled eggs.
They always used to say it was Cribb and Molyneux. They hadn't used to say Molyneux. In fact, I did hear somebody say, I don't know why they've got that newfangled name for him. I did, that is the truth. I did hear somebody say that. But Molyneux, well, what's he got that newfangled name for?
But the most interesting aspect of the whole affair is that the fight took place at a spot where 3 counties meet. There was Lincolnshire, Rutland and Leicestershire. And the point of it was that if the Rutland police should arrive, for example, to arrest these illegal proceedings, they would be able in one bound to crash over the ring into Lincolnshire and vice versa.
Rutland that way, Lincolnshire that way, and Leicestershire that.
So now I'm in Leicestershire.
That's right.
Now I'm in Lincolnshire.
No,
Now I'm in Rutland.
that's right.
Will you join me in a jump?
I don't think I can. I would have done. People say, how old are you? And I say sometimes, oh, well, I was born when Queen Victoria was Queen. But I was only a fortnight old when she died. But when I got a little bit older, I didn't say so much about it. I didn't want them to think I'd been born when Queen Victoria was alive.
In Lincolnshire was built by Mr. Gregory for himself and himself alone between 1831 and 1851. He never married, he disliked his heir, and he never entertained. A bachelor existence with over 120 rooms. One of Gregory's most curious extravagances was a train that he had built to bring in the coal and the wood to the house at bedroom level from the woods beyond. Oh, this track still lying here. My God, it's exciting. Goodness me. On and on and on and on and on and on, and out into glory. But the most delectable detail of the whole affair is that these great solid plaster tassels, with their ropes that droop and swoop all over the place, swing with an effortless flick of the finger. It is so surprising to think that Ferry Bridge in Yorkshire, where the motorways now meet from the north, the south, the east and the west, was once the cockpit of medieval England, where warring factions raged for so many years. And it is here, too, that Margaret, wife of Edward I, gave birth to a son, being surprised, it is said, whilst she was abroad taking the air, some say out hunting. One day driving past the spot, an astonishing thing happened, in that a rainbow whizzing along the road suddenly ended on my bonnet. And it definitely did. There wasn't a question if it was or it wasn't. It was there on the end of the bonnet. So I have driven to the end of the rainbow past Ferry Bridge. Within sight of the Great North Road near Ripon in Yorkshire, there is an overgrown, lost and forgotten domain that is quite riddled with rarity and romance. It is called Hackfall, the remains of an 18th century landscape garden of majestic proportions, with ravines, crags, ponds and waterfalls, and most glorious of all, little buildings, all of which still survive in a ruinous state. Mowbray Point was the Gothic banqueting house with a drawing room as well as a dining room. This picturesque tour de force was laid out by William Aselby between 1730 and 1750. And there was an excellent poem written to all its glories by James Casmay, nail-maker of Grulthorpe. Welcome, thrice welcome, strangers all, that visit me, the famed Hack Fall. To Lover's Leap we first have got a very interesting spot. If that old castle could unfold the deeds it witnessed of old, no doubt to what it would give vent would fill us with astonishment. But as it can't, we'll pass along while songsters welcome us with song. As here you stand, for miles you'll see a very charming scenery, of miles of rich and fertile land, all variegated and most grand. You'll find not far down in the glade the Alum Spring, a grand cascade, whose crystal stream with brilliant crest flows gleeful from Dame Nature's breast. So now goodbye, ye one and all, whilst I am truly yours, Hack Fall. Only a mile away there is something equally extraordinary and equally unknown.
What is that bell?
It is an electrifying time warp, a prosperous 19th century country house on which no hand has wrought changes since it was built in 1870, and where marble statues loom up at every turn. Sylvia Grant Dalton has lived here for over 60 years with her two husbands, Charles and Eustace Grant Dalton. Sylvia?
Yes?
Tell me what you think of the house. Do you love it?
No. I'm not a Victoriana person at all. I'm a Georgian. Why should I love it?
I love it.
You love it, yes, because you're younger than I am. And well, I mean, I look after it, because that's what I was asked to do and why I was left it, I suppose. But I can't say I love it. It's a very hard work.
But I think, nevertheless, it is a triumph for the house. I think it's very beautiful. Those long corridors with those statues and mirrors are wonderful.
Are they?
Not in your mind. Not in your view.
No, they're not my gusto. I don't really care for that sort of thing all that much. Because I don't care for sentimentality of Victorian times, and some of them are hellishly sentimental.
When did you first come?
Oh, when I was frightfully young. I wasn't married at that age. I was quite ancient when I was married. I was 16, 17. I've got a scaggy nail. Where's the gardener? He's got a lovely thing of shears.
Sylvia.
Yes.
How old were you when you met your husband?
I don't know. He used to come up to the nursery and Nanny was furious. Say, why doesn't he go have his tea in the drawing room like everybody else? And I said, I really don't know.
But how old? You mean about 12?
12, I think, yeah. Freckles and hideous.
Oh, I bet you weren't.
I was hideous. I have got a scaggy nail. Let's see if I can find a file somewhere.
So, but did he court you when you were 12?
I don't know. He caught me. I wasn't caught, I don't think. I didn't know anything about it much.
What happened?
Nothing happened. Except Nanny got in a rage, and then after Nanny had finished with us, the governess got in a rage.
And when you were 17, did you have to come and take charge of the house?
I shouldn't have known it. I think the housekeeper was more charged than me. She bullied me a bit.
What was her name?
Lambton, Wattletop, we called her.
Why?
What?
Why was she called Wattletop?
I have no idea. The boys called her Wattletop. She had very frizzly hair here. I should think that might be the reason, but it might not.
Was she frightening?
Was she what?
Frightening.
No, I don't think so, because I don't think I've ever been frightened of anything or anybody. I hope not.
You've grown to love the house a bit, haven't you?
It's a bit hard at times, but bearing the cold. I'm so freezy cold. Feel me now, I'm frozy cold. And so you are too.
Yeah.
No, you're warmer than I am.
I'm a bit warmer.
Yeah, I'm freezy cold everywhere. I hate this scaggy nail. I must find her. Must find her. I'll watch you call them to do it.
I'll get you one. So there's one just coming. Tell me now, one more thing.
What
Oh,
one
here.
more thing?
Oh, gosh, how frightening. Here, look, here. Where is your nail?
It's there. What you doing?
I'm attacking it.
You're taking a finger off.
Not. It's not a knife. It's not a knife. It's a nail file.
Well, it looks like a dagger. I never knew such a carry on in all my Burnley days.
County Durham was once home, and thrilling feelings of anticipation well up from one of the most striking sights on a Great North Road, one that can be seen for miles and miles and miles around, rears into view. It is Penshaw Monument, the embarrassingly vast memorial to my great-great-great-great-grandfather, John George Lambton, 1st Earl of Durham, joint author of the first Reform Bill and Governor-General of Canada. The monument was raised by public subscription, some £3,000, after his death in 1840. And it is an exact copy of the Temple of Theseus, only double the size in all its proportions. A very odd aspect of it all was that they laid the foundation stone 4 years later, in 1844, when these pillars are already raised to their full height, soaring up into the sky. It seems to have been an unusually splendid occasion. The Freemasons came out in full and magnificent force for the day, with their insignia and their symbols and their banners flashing and blazing in the sun, and Rule Britannia thundering away as the foundation stone was laid, to the cheers of the 30,000 people who'd come, some on special stone-laying excursion trips. Enemies were rife then. It is said that Lord Durham made as many as he made friends. He was ardent and impulsive, but described as having an overwhelming vanity. And an anonymous verse was penned on that theme about Penshaw. To typify the man, they made each part as huge as his pride and as hollow as his heart. Penshaw Hill features alarmingly in a song of the Lambton worm, which is about that terrible creature which terrorised the northeast in the 12th century. It is not, in fact, an ancient song, nor is it a folk song, but it is a song that was written especially for a pantomime in the New Tyne Theatre in Newcastle. It was written by Mr. C.M. Lumain in 1867. And this is the Demon Trap. It is particularly thrilling to think the Lambton Worm was sung on this stage for the very first time, ever, in 1867.
But the worm, it growed and growed and growed and growed in an awful size, with a great big teeth and a great big gob and a great big goggly eyes. And when at night it crawled about to pick up its own news, if it fell dry upon the road, it milked 10 dozen coos. Oh, wish, lads, had you gob, I'll tell you now this awful story. Wish, lads, had you gob, I'll tell you about that worm.
Northumberland is a beautiful county, richly cultivated yet huge and wild, with a wealth of castles, none more imposing than Alnwick. The Great North Road is squeezed into the narrowness of one car when it goes through the Hotspur Gate. And behind one of the pleasing grey stone facades of Bondgate within, there is a splendid secret.
Few people realise, I certainly did not when I was a child and came here often, that this elaborately carved room in the White Swan Hotel in Alnwick used to travel regularly across the Atlantic from England to America at 30 miles an hour. It is the first-class saloon of the sister ship of the Titanic. It was called the Olympic, and in its day was the largest liner of the world, an enormous floating palace of some 45,500 tons. With the first swimming pool that ever was built into a liner, of the Arabian style, there was also a lush palm court. This saloon, described as a noble apartment of the Louis XV style, with details taken from the Palace of Versailles, was for passengers to indulge in reading, cards, conversation, tea drinking and other social intercourse. And thank goodness it was saved. What a huge surprise it is to find it in the middle of Northumberland. A few miles to the north, the towers of Bamborough Castle tumble into the sea, and how far, far, far away it all feels from that other and hideous Barbican in London. And at Berwick-on-Tweed, the heart soars when one contemplates the Royal Border Bridge linking England to Scotland with its iron banes. It was built by Robert Stephenson in 1847. The first train to go over it was in 1848, and it was formally opened by Queen Victoria 2 years after it had been in constant use, alighting from her train for only 12 minutes to perform the important ceremony. When I look at it, I think something very different, which is the Everly Brothers, that exquisitely harmonising pair from Nashville, Tennessee, who I met on King's Cross Station 28 years ago. They were with Buddy Holly's Crickets, and all of us together crammed into a tiny, tiny compartment.
Arms rose up on either side instead, commemorating the Battle of Waterloo. But there is a jewel at the end of the Great North Road, one of the most glittering rooms in all of the British Isles.
birthday, you.
Hooray for the Everleigh brothers! It is 28 years since we met on the Flying Scotsman. For some obscure reason, I had a toy gun in my pocket that night, and I fired it off in their honour.
Well, the way I recall, the actual meeting was, we were all walking to the train, take the night train to Edinburgh. We had, the Crickets were with us. Donald was walking in front of us, and he got on, and we heard a shot. And we jumped up, because we all got scared, and there you were.
I remember
17-year-old English beauty, and there you go.
I remember very well
was
standing in that door and seeing you two approaching, and there's that special smell and that noise.
No, I don't remember it that way. I remember you saying, "Oh, have you tried the scotch?" and open your purse and a little aloof.
This is stupid. I've never had a flask. I've never had a flask of whiskey in my bag.
It wasn't a flask. It was a small bottle.
Of course, I've never had a bottle of whiskey in my
sure?
bag.
Certainly
not. I've never drunk it in my life, nor have I ever had it with me.
It was a great time, though. You took me around in London and found me those pointed shoes. They were teddy boy shoes, they called them at the time. Points came this long, you know, the points, real pointed.
A good foot.
In fact, I wore them and they were so pointed the toes turned up eventually, you know, just looked a little bit like a leprechaun at the end. You don't remember doing that?
No, I don't. What year are we talking about?
It's got to be the same year. It's got to be 1960.
My happiest memories is sitting all of us crushed into that tiny compartment with the guitars all night. All the orchestration being there in the compartment. With
the whole band?
Yeah.
Everything out.
That's a nice 17-year-old memory, though. It really is.
All the way up to Edinburgh. Think how exciting for the people in the fields as we passed, too, the wailing sound. So we have done it. We've come all the way up through the glories of England to the glory of Scotland, up the backbone of Britain, the great North Road.
Facing down 50, Paddy McGuinness and Chris Harris are on a quest to crack the code of ageing well, seeking out secrets, road tripping through Sweden, Greece and Switzerland. Watch on BBC iPlayer.